What if the moment you wake up spiritually is the moment everything goes silent? They told you awakening would feel like a sunrise, bright, clear, radiant. But what if it feels more like losing your breath, like standing in a life you no longer recognize, wearing a face that no longer fits? You look around, and nothing feels real, not your goals, not your dreams, not even your own voice. There's no explosion of purpose, just a soft collapse. No more fire, only smoke. No more drive, just a strange stillness that stretches across your days like fog. If you've felt that, if you've wondered whether you broke something inside you, you haven't. You've simply stepped into the space no one warned you about, the space after the ego falls, but before the soul fully rises. And yes, it's terrifying. You've lost the map, but you've also stopped running someone else's race. That silence, that numbness, it's not a failure, it's a beginning. Let me tell you a story. There was a time when I, too, felt like a hollow shell. The things that used to move me didn't even stir a whisper inside. The world felt loud, but I couldn't hear myself anymore. Until one night, staring at the ceiling, I felt it. Not a voice, not a vision, just a soft, unexplainable sense that maybe this emptiness wasn't emptiness at all. Maybe it was sacred, and that's what this video is about. Not motivation, not performance, but a quiet kind of truth, the kind that doesn't push but waits until you're ready to hear what your soul's been whispering all along. If you've felt yourself in any of this, comment, "I'm in the chrysalis and I will emerge." Not for me, but so your soul can hear itself speak. Like this video, subscribe if you're tired of pretending, because here we don't perform. We sit in the dark and wait for the truth to take shape. 1. The moment the fire went out. Do you remember the last time you felt truly driven? When waking up meant chasing something, status, recognition, a dream carefully shaped by what others said would matter. And then, one day, it just stopped. No explosion, no breakdown, just a strange absence. The fire that once burned inside you vanished. You wake up, and the urgency is gone. You scroll through your to-do list, but nothing sparks. You see people celebrating wins, milestones, chasing goals, and you feel nothing. At first, you panic. You think, am I depressed? Have I given up? What's wrong with me? But deep down, a part of you whispers, nothing is wrong. You're just not there anymore. Because the old fire wasn't yours. It was built on proving, pleasing, surviving, on being someone in a world that rewards performance over presence. And now that you've tasted truth, that kind of ambition can't light you up anymore. The motivation you had, it wasn't rooted in your soul. It was fueled by fear of not being enough, of falling behind, of being invisible. And now, that fuel is gone. You're not lazy. You're not lost. You're just done lying to yourself. The hardest part is, this space you've entered, this hollow calm, no one talks about it. Because it doesn't sell, it doesn't sparkle, it doesn't make for flashy headlines. But this is the beginning of your truth. You're not broken. You've outgrown the system that told you your worth had to be earned, and now you're here, still, quiet, honest. It feels like apathy, but it's not. It's sacred disinterest in what never mattered. You're shedding your borrowed fire so that the real spark, gentler, quieter but more honest, can find its way to you. If you're here, if these words echo something you haven't been able to name, leave a comment that says, "I'm in between fires." Let the world know that not chasing doesn't mean you've stopped. It means you've started over. 2. Beyond the illusion, seeing through the mask. There comes a moment, not with fanfare but with a whisper, when you begin to notice the roles you've been playing, the achiever, the good child, the one who always has it together, the spiritual one, even that. And suddenly they feel like costumes. Not lies exactly, just echoes of who you thought you needed to be. You look at your life and realize so much of what you built was crafted for applause you no longer care about. Success that doesn't taste like success. A purpose that was borrowed, not born. It hits you slowly. The illusion wasn't just out there, in the media, in society. It was inside too. The goals, the checklists, even your dreams. They were shaped by an ego that meant well, but didn't know the whole story. And when you see that, really see it, it doesn't always bring peace. It brings grief, because you're mourning a version of you that tried so hard, who believed the script, followed the rules, kept striving, only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. This is the heartbreak no one talks about. Not the heartbreak of losing someone else, but of realizing you were never truly you. You wake up to your own performance, and it stings. But in that sting, something opens, a space, a possibility. Because once the mask cracks, you can finally breathe. No more pretending to care about things that drain you. No more chasing what doesn't resonate. No more squeezing yourself into a version of you that was never fully alive. This is not the end. This is the uncloaking. It's raw. It's awkward. And it's real. If this part of the journey is where you are, seeing the illusions for what they were, comment, "I see the mask now." Not as a confession, but as a declaration. You are remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. 3. The silence that follows. After the mask drops, after the illusion fades, after the fire dies, there is silence. Not the peaceful kind that lulls you into sleep, but the sacred kind that wakes you up. It's thick, uncomfortable. Still, you're not driven anymore. You're not distracted. You're just here. People ask, "What are you working on?" And you don't know what to say. Because you're not working on anything. You're unworking, unraveling, undoing. And that's not nothing. It's everything. This silence is not emptiness. It's a pause between identities, a waiting room for the soul. But it feels strange, doesn't it? To not have an answer, to not have a 5-year plan, to not be on your way somewhere impressive. The world doesn't know what to do with someone who's not striving. So you begin to wonder, am I lost? But you're not lost. You're just no longer willing to be found in places that aren't real. This silence, it's a detox, a recalibration. It's your soul whispering, "Let me speak now." But the soul doesn't shout. It doesn't schedule meetings or announce itself with fireworks. It waits, in the quiet, in the breath between distractions. In the moment, you stop trying to be something, and when it speaks, it says things the mind doesn't understand. Not yet, because the language of the soul is not logic. It's resonance, it's presence, it's depth. If this silence has found you, if you've felt adrift in a world that doesn't understand stillness, comment, "I'm listening now." Not because you figured it out, but because you've made space for what's real to find you. And 4, falling inward, the start of the descent. They never told you that awakening feels like falling. Not rising, not soaring, not reaching the mountaintop with open arms and radiant light. No, it feels like falling inward, like being pulled into yourself by a force deeper than thought. You're not crashing, you're collapsing. Inward, the outer scaffolding of identity, stripped piece by piece. The plans, the titles, the future you rehearsed 1,000 times, they slip from your hands without a fight. You begin to forget who you were trying to become, and the forgetting feels like failure, but it isn't. It's rebirth. Because real transformation doesn't begin with clarity, it begins with confusion. You walk through your days like someone newly born but not yet named, a child of silence, of depth, of undoing. And here's the truth. This part, it's lonely, profoundly, because most people are still climbing ladders, still chasing the old fire, still shouting over their own truth. And you've gone quiet, not by choice, by necessity. You're not interested in pretending anymore, in hustling, selling, explaining, fixing. You're not broken. You're just mid-metamorphosis. The descent is sacred. It strips away what cannot go with you into who you're becoming. And yes, it's terrifying, because the bottom doesn't come with a sign. It just arrives and then deepens, until all that remains is your breath, your heartbeat, and the faint memory that something greater is unfolding. This isn't stagnation, it's gestation. You are not stuck. You are surrendering. If you're here, falling inward, unsure what's next, comment, "I trust the descent." Let that be your anchor, in a world that worships ascension but fears the stillness beneath it. 5. Jung's Negredo, death of the persona. Carl Jung didn't romanticize awakening. He didn't wrap it in light or lace it with comfort. He called it what it is, Negredo, the blackening, the beginning of internal alchemy, the death of the persona. And you're in it, that phase where everything once certain begins to dissolve, where your reflection no longer looks familiar, where your voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. You're not going crazy, you're just watching the mask melt. Jung knew the persona wasn't a lie. It was a survival strategy, a necessary face we wear to meet the world. But when it takes over, we forget there's anything underneath, until one day the soul says, "Enough." And that's when the dismantling begins. You stop trying to impress. You lose the energy to perform. You can't make yourself care about the things that once consumed you. It feels like disconnection, but it's actually reconnection to something deeper, older, truer. This is where depression is often misdiagnosed. Not because you're broken, but because you're in spiritual suspension. No clear purpose, no plan, just quiet collapse. And beneath it all, the quiet voice of your becoming. Negredo is not glamorous, it's not shareable, it won't win you followers or likes, but it will win you back to yourself. This is the descent Jung spoke of, not into madness, into meaning, into the underworld, where the ego surrenders and the self begins to take shape, not performatively, but organically. You don't rise out of Negredo, you grow through it, like a seed cracking open in the dark. If this is where you are, if the old script is gone and the new one hasn't arrived, comment, "I'm in the Negredo." It's not weakness, it's rebirth in slow motion. 6. The chrysalis, sacred stillness. They call it the chrysalis for a reason. Not a pause, not a break, but a space so silent, so still, that it feels like nothing is happening at all. But inside everything is changing. You are no longer the caterpillar, always consuming, always moving, always needing the next leaf. But you are not yet the butterfly either. You are the in-between, the shapeless, the unformed. And it's terrifying, because the world outside doesn't see the transformation. It sees only stillness, only silence, only someone who seems off. But inside you, the blueprint is dissolving. The DNA of old dreams is reorganizing. This is not decay, it's design. Stillness is your cocoon. Silence is your sanctuary. And while the world moves fast, celebrating motion, mistaking productivity for worth, you are learning a different rhythm, a sacred slowness, a devotion to unseen growth. You may feel invisible, you may feel useless, but you are becoming, and the becoming cannot be rushed. In the chrysalis there are no goals, no metrics, no certainty, only surrender, only breath, only trust. If you're here, wrapped in the sacred unknown, comment, "I'm in the chrysalis," not as a cry for help, but as a sacred mark of presence, that even in the dark, you are honoring what's becoming. 7. Listening for the soul's whisper. The ego shouts, it plans, demands, schedules, pushes, but the soul whispers, and in this quiet phase you begin to hear it, not as a voice with clear instructions, but as a nudge, a flicker, a subtle shift in the wind of your being. It doesn't say, "Do this." It says, "This feels true." You start to notice what resonates, not what impresses. You begin to feel pulled by curiosity, not urgency. You act, not to perform, but to align. One day you wake up and feel the impulse to write, or take a long walk, or simply sit in stillness. Not because you have to, but because something inside quietly says yes. And you realize you're not unmotivated. You're just no longer driven by fear. The desire to achieve is fading, but in its place grows a new kind of devotion to honesty, to authenticity, to quiet alignment. This is not the old fire. It's a steady glow. It doesn't roar, it warms, it doesn't command, it invites. And it always says the same thing: stay close to what feels real. You don't need a 5-year plan, you need a moment of truth. The soul doesn't ask you to hustle, it asks you to listen. If you've started feeling those subtle whispers, those barely there nudges pulling you toward truth, comment, "I hear the whisper." It means you're tuning in, not to the noise of the world, but to the sacred voice within it. 8. The quiet rebirth. Rebirth doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it tiptoes in. No grand moment, no flash of insight, just a slow realization. You're not who you were. You wake up and don't feel the old weight anymore. You move through your day and notice something is lighter, softer, more honest. You're not forcing yourself to care about the wrong things. You're not pretending to be okay when you're not. You're not reaching for applause that no longer feeds you. And no, you haven't figured it all out. You've simply stopped lying. That's rebirth. It's not about being new. It's about being true. The world may not notice, you may still feel invisible, but inside you something real is forming. You act not to achieve, but to express. You speak not to impress, but to connect. You create not for results, but for resonance. This is the self that doesn't need to be explained. It just is. You begin to trust your own presence. You walk with quieter steps, but firmer ground. You move slower, but more meaningfully. This rebirth doesn't demand that you show it to the world. It invites you to live it, breathe it, anchor it. You're not rebuilding the old house. You're laying the foundation for something you've never lived before. And it will take time. It will take patience. But it will be yours. If you feel this shift, this slow return to yourself, comment, "Becoming real." Let it be your declaration, your quiet celebration, not of what you've achieved, but of what you're allowing to emerge. 9. Living without a script. You used to live by a script. Be this, do that, climb here, achieve there. And now, that script is gone. At first it felt like chaos, like being unmoored in a sea of nothing. But now something else is emerging. Not a new script, but a new center. One that doesn't rely on control, but on trust. You no longer need to prove. You no longer seek approval from people who don't understand your becoming. You are living without a map, not because you're lost, but because the path is no longer external. You've become your own compass. You navigate by resonance, by energy, by the quiet feeling in your chest that says yes or not this. You say no without guilt. You choose silence without shame. You walk away without needing a reason. And the best part, you don't need the world to clap anymore. You're not here to perform. You're here to embody, not for likes, not for followers, not for status, but because your truth deserves to breathe. You live from presence, not pressure, from alignment, not ambition. And while the world spins with noise and hustle, you've learned the sacred art of stillness, the power of enough, the beauty of just being. This isn't stagnation, this is sovereignty. The self that emerges here is indestructible, not because it's armored, but because it's real. If you've made it this far, if something inside you knows this isn't the end, but the most honest beginning yet, comment, "Thank you, soul," not as a final word, but as a quiet vow to keep living from this new place. Rooted, resonant, real.